Welcome to part 3 of this mini video series where I'm telling you a bit about why I stepped away from bodybuilding, why it ruined my health, how I developed hypothalamic amenorrhea, how I recovered from HA, and how I have lost weight and maintained that weight loss since my HA recovery journey came to an end. If you're new around here, my name is Clara. I'm a chartered psychologist, a healthcare practitioners council registered sport and exercise psychologist, a fitness coach, an ex-bodybuilder, and now hybrid athlete, allegedly, even though I hate that term. And for the first time in my entire adult life, as far as I can remember, I've been able to maintain my weight for the last 2 and a bit years with relatively zero effort. And in this video, I'm going to tell you a bit more about how I've been able to do that since recovering from hypothalamic amenorrhea. Now, if you are watching this video, this is the first video of me that you're seeing, I strongly encourage you to watch part 1 and part 2 of this video series, because otherwise you're not going to have a ton of context for this. You can find the links to those videos in the description. So for those of you who have been following, let's jump straight into it. We're now in May 2023. At this point, I've gained 15 kilos since I got married. I am about 23 kilos heavier than I was when I last competed in bodybuilding. So again, I've maybe gained like a third plus of my, more than a third of my body weight, which is kind of crazy to think about. And I know that this is all relative, but again, for me, that was pretty substantial. None of my clothes fit me. I felt so uncomfortable all of the time in my body, but I had a menstrual cycle. I felt normal for the first time in my life. I didn't have this constant hunger food noise going on in the back of my mind non-stop, because I finally allowed myself to just eat to satiety, to meet my needs for hunger. And of course, as we know from the HA recovery literature, very often when we need to restore our periods because we've lost them due to consistent chronic stress, chronic overexercise, and chronic undereating, we often have to like overshoot our body weight in order to recover our period, right? Like, and I knew that was going to be the case for me too. But thanks to Stephanie Buttermore, like I mentioned in the previous video, I knew that going all in was going to be really scary. I knew that my body was going to change loads, but I also knew, and I trusted what she said in all the videos, and again, I'm just so grateful for her. I knew that things were not going to be that difficult forever, and that like my body would again find its natural set point. And to be completely honest with you, that's exactly what happened when I started being able to exercise a little bit more again, like May, June 2023. For one, I was quite apprehensive and I was quite scared of exercising again. I guess like I didn't go obviously balls to the wall straight away, but I just gradually increased how much I was exercising. So I started to move a bit more day to day. I started to enjoy going out for walks. Obviously it was coming into the summer, so I was enjoying being outdoors a bit more, and I was just with a lot of trepidation gradually increasing how much I was exercising. And every single month when I got my period, I was like, okay, my body's safe here, like this is good. Again, I was tracking my menstrual cycle, I was tracking my temperatures with natural cycles. Absolutely incredible form of like birth control at the time, but also as a means to like actually keep me on track with HA recovery. And gradually just started like exercising a little bit more. Again, not deliberately trying to like lose weight. I wasn't going out of my way to try to lose weight. At this point, I had done all the therapy, I'd done all the self-acceptance. I was in a good spot. I was like, okay, well, if this is what it is, and if this is where my body's healthy, then such is. But because I'd finally eaten to satiety and I was satisfied and satiated, full stop, my appetite, I guess the only way I can describe it is like went back to being normal. Like I wasn't constantly thinking about food. I didn't have the urge to like overeat. I couldn't imagine myself eating 10,000 calories because I was so attuned to like when I was hungry and when I was full, and I knew like what to eat, and I'd given myself the unconditional permission to eat whatever I wanted. And so I'd kind of gotten to this very calm and sort of relaxed state around food, which meant that I wasn't judging my food decisions perhaps in the way that I had learnt or come to judge things as a result of like quite rigid bodybuilding. And essentially, by virtue of listening to my hunger and satiety cues, and by virtue of gradually moving a little bit more, but not so much that, you know, I was maybe damaging my health, and actually approaching that with a lot of trepidation, gradually, like I just started to lose weight without any effort. Now, I was keeping track of my scale weight at the time because I was so paranoid about losing my period again that I was like, I need to keep track of like all the data, because I need to know that if, you know, I increase my exercise, and I wasn't tracking food at this time, but if I increase my exercise and suddenly my body weight drops and what I'm eating is different and I lose my period, like I need to know where I'm at to be able to go back to that weight essentially. So that's kind of why I was still tracking my weight. And so I was losing weight slowly, probably from like May 2023 to like October 2023. So that same year, so in 5 months, I think I lost something like 4-ish kilos. Yeah, 4.5, 5-ish kilos slowly. So it's like what's like a kilo a month, which in the grand scheme of things like isn't what would be deemed like rapid weight loss by any stretch of the imagination, not by the fitness industry standards anyway. And again, I wasn't going crazy. I wasn't like trying to exercise loads and loads, but that summer I did start to notice a bit of like an urge to start running a bit more. Again, the weather was nice. I kind of ran quite a bit during the pandemic, and it's something that I have enjoyed on and off in my life. And so I gradually just started to like want to run a little bit more, and so I started doing like, I don't know, 25 minutes or 30 minutes, enjoying it really very much, not pushing myself. Again, super wary and super scared of losing my period, but again tracking all the data to make sure that didn't happen. And I then, as in my capacity as a sports psychologist or a trainee sports psychologist at the time, I started working with a couple of Hyrox athletes. Now, I'd never heard of fucking Hyrox. I don't know what the hell that was. But part of being a sports psychologist is that you often go and you observe your athletes when they're training, not just to be able to see them, to see them perform, and to kind of like see if there's anything within behavior that you can pinpoint as maybe contributing to the difficulties that they're having when it comes to performing under pressure, but also to create conditions of performing under pressure, right? So I was working with this one particular athlete, and we did like, I don't know if it was like 2 to 3 observation sessions in person together, and it kind of just like piqued my interest. I was like, oh, this Hyrox thing looks kind of interesting, right? Like this looks kind of fun. Like strength training, I've been doing that. Running, I've been doing a bit of that. Like I've been sort of training totally randomly, going in and doing whatever I wanted to, quite free range as I like to call it. And one day I just thought, you know what, why don't I just give this a bit of a bash? And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to take the Hyrox workout and I'm going to half it, and I'm just going to give it a go at the gym. Well, I was humbled. I was so freaking humbled. I remember going on the ski erg for the first time in my life, because bearing in mind, I'd been a bodybuilder up until this point. I had never touched the assault bike, the ski erg, the rower. Like I'd been on the rower in like 2015 when I was a uni student, like in my undergrad. Like I went on the Stairmaster and that's it. And the treadmill for steps, that was it. But in this one day, I was like, I'm going to give it a go. Went on the ski erg and I nearly threw up a lung. It was awful. And I thought, fuck me, like that's bloody hard, and I actually want to get good at this. So this is maybe like July, August time of 2023. I'd signed up to train to run a half marathon in August. And then I decided after that, do you know what? I'm ready to work with a coach, and I want to work with somebody who I'm going to be able to learn about these different training modalities. I want to do a completely different skill set. I want to train for performance, and I'd quite like to do a Hyrox race. And that's when I started working with my coach, Tom. So this is now beginning of October 2023. And so I started working with Tom, and I signed up to do Hyrox in Glasgow in March 2024. And it essentially just like set me on this path of like strength training, which I'd always loved, but strength training not to change the way that I look with strength training, but just to perform well. It was a completely different mindset shift. It was, way more fun. It wasn't going balls to wall every single session, because Tom would say like, oh, 8 reps of this at like 80%, and I'd be like, what the fuck, like what does that mean, right? In bodybuilding, it's like 6 to 8 reps to failure every single set. You leave nothing there. You just like train to the end. And this is like suddenly just a complete different mindset that I needed to be able to approach this training, right? And so my food intake was something that I was like obviously aware of, because I was conscious of the risk of me losing my period. But as I started working with Tom, and as I started to like change my training, I was maybe like running 2 to 3 times a week. I was at the gym, 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes 4, so like doing no more than 6 sessions across the week, but the composition of those sessions was slightly different. And essentially in that time, again, between me starting with Tom in like October, where I was about like 62-ish kilos, I then decided to do that Hyrox. Then I trained for the Edinburgh Marathon in the May of 2024. In that time period, I think like my weight came down by like another 2 kilos. So again, it's very, very small changes from like October to May, in that time frame. But I was getting stronger. I was becoming more athletic. I was running faster. And since finishing the Edinburgh Marathon, granted, like depending on like the season of my life or what's been happening, like I've maybe been between like high 58s to like 60 kilos, but my weight has not really shifted from there. And when I tell you that I've not really been thinking much about calories. I've had some times where I have been tracking my calories a bit more intentionally because I've been training for an event, and again, it's always come from this place of like a fear of losing my period. So like, am I eating enough carbohydrates? Am I meeting my nutritional needs? But I go on and off it very, very loosely. Same with like tracking my weight. It's been very much like, okay, let me make sure that I don't lose too much weight because I don't want to lose my period again. But essentially, I've just been able to maintain my weight, and I haven't gone back to this urge to be super lean, this urge to like cut my calories loads. Like, I just can't think of anything worse than being on a restrictive diet. Like, I can't think of anything worse. And to me, it ties back to all the things that I talk about in my more like educational videos, like this principle of self-compassion and self-esteem. When you develop unconditional positive regard towards yourself, unconditional self-compassion for yourself, you are able to identify like how much of what is enough for you for your life. As they say, like, it's not a dream body if it was a nightmare to get there. And what, like, for me, health is and is represented by the things that I get to do when I get to live my life to the fullest, when I'm not having to compromise between like socializing and trading, when I'm not when I can do it all at the same time. And it's been those guiding principles like my self-esteem, self-compassion, self-acceptance that I think have helped me, be able to maintain my weight with relatively low effort, because I've done the all or nothing. I've done the like off-season dieting, like all that bullshit. I've done the self-sabotage, binge restrict. I've been there, I've done that, and all I ever wanted was like to maintain a healthy weight. Like, I didn't want to be on this never-ending yo-yo. Being able to let go of bodybuilding, being able to recover from hypothalamic amenorrhea, being able to become a compassionate practitioner, obviously using compassion-focused therapy in my applied work as a psychologist, using it as and commitment therapy, being able to do all those things and really like embody the things I speak to my clients about and things I help my clients with, is what's helped me then apply it obviously to myself to have that integrity. And that's resulted in being able to maintain my weight over the last 2 years with relatively low effort. And now, of course, I still pay attention to my health. Like, I always say the compassionate thing is to do the compassionate thing. Like, the kindest thing to do is to be able to primarily eat a diet that is, relatively whole foods based. I'm also vegan, but that's got nothing to do with intentions to lose weight. I'm vegan for ethical reasons, but eat a diet that is very, full of plants, full of whole grains. I don't eat like loads and loads of processed stuff, but like I'm not that arsed about it. But yeah, not eating a ton of very highly super palatable sugary food that frequently, but not denying myself that stuff either. Like, really genuinely finding that definition of balance for me, for my life, is what's enabled me to train 5 or 6 times a week and not let that get in the way of my life, eat in the ways that I want to eat and socialize around food and with alcohol in ways that are important to me and not let that get in the way of my life. And it still enabled me to train for different fitness goals, pursue different goals, and do relatively okay for someone who doesn't consider themselves to be an athlete, right? Like, I know a lot of people call themselves athletes. That definition does not, that's just not me. And yeah, like, it's not, there's no magic to it, to be completely honest with you. Any of the education videos where I talk about pursuing intentional weight loss or recovering from like difficulties with body image, the same principles apply. It's about building your self-esteem. It's about building your self-compassion. It's about building your self-acceptance. All those things, in my professional opinion and in my professional experience, are the things that over time help you take the steps towards, or take the steps that might then elicit intentional weight loss or unintentional weight loss as a result, but then not take that too far to the extreme of it becoming unhelpful. And equally, if you're on the other side of the spectrum where you're trying to gain weight and you also have hypothalamic amenorrhea or any other kind of issue relating to a relative energy deficiency for you, applying self-compassion, applying self-acceptance, applying self-esteem principles, those things are the same things that are going to help you be able to restore your weight and get to a point in which you can maintain that weight that your body is comfortable and actually happy at. So I don't really know if this makes a ton of sense, the way that I've kind of explained it. I'm sure I'll talk about this a lot more in like future videos to come, especially as I talk to you about, how my training is going for this wild hybrid event. But to me, compassion and self-acceptance and having a high self-esteem and high self-worth are the most fundamental steps if anybody wants to be able to maintain their weight, whether that be by gaining weight and restoring weight, or whether that be by intentionally losing weight and getting into a point in which your body is healthy and is happy. So if you take anything from this video, if you've taken anything from the videos that I've been making in this series, it is that work on your self-compassion, work on your self-acceptance, work on your self-esteem, and I would bet money on the fact that you will be fine. You will find your happy, healthy, balanced medium, no more, no less. And if you need any help with that, head to the description, click the link where it says inquire about working with me, and I'll very much look forward to hearing from you, hopefully very soon. This brings me to the back end of this 3-part series of why I left bodybuilding, how I recovered from HA, and how I've maintained my weight for the last 2 and a bit years. Obviously, if you've enjoyed the videos up until this point, make sure to have liked them, make sure to watch all 3 parts, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any future videos, and I can't wait to see you in the next video where I update you on how my training has been for Wild Hybrid up until this point, and where I'm at and how I'm feeling and all the good stuff in between. So if not sooner, then I will see you then.